The journal pages for lesson 7-5 are on solving number stories. So let's look at number 1. It says each member of the flute section of Briar Woods Elementary School band practiced for 2 3/5 hours last week. So I'm going to highlight that information. There are 5 flute players. What is the total number of hours they practice? So first we're going to do, I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit, the number model with the unknown, which would be the 5 flute players, and they each practiced for 2 3/5 hours last week, and that would give me the total hours that they practiced. Okay, show 2 different ways to solve our number story. This is exactly like we just did in the last video. The first way is I'm going to break apart that mixed number. So if I did 5 times 2 plus 3/5, I would do 5 times 2 plus 5 times 3/5, and I'm going to put my 5 here over 1. And I know that 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15 over 1 times 5, which is 5. And I know that 15 divided by 5. So 15/5 is the same as 10 plus 5. I'm sorry, not 5, 10 plus 3. Because remember, this is 5/5 plus 5/5 plus 5/5. That's the same as saying 15/5. And I know that there's 1, 2, 3 holes. So that's where I'm getting that 3 from. And your answer is 13 hours. And I like to circle or put a box around it just because when you start doing these multi-step problems, your answer could get lost. So you'll find me, I change my colors a lot to try to organize the information, but I always usually circle or box the answer because it's just easier for you when you go back and look. Okay, my other way I'm going to solve is changing 2 3/5 to a improper fraction. So, and you know how Miss Mold always complains that they never give you enough room. So if you need another sheet of paper to do this, you should do it. So if I multiplied 2 times 5, I would get 10 plus 3 is 13/5. And if I put my whole number over 1, I could do 5 times 13, which I'm going to do on the side. 3 times 5 is 15. Carry the 1. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. So this becomes 65/5. Now, I already know 65 is a multiple of 5. So what times 5 would give you 65? And if I really wanted to, I could do division. What times 5 would get close to 6? 5 times 1 would give me 5, and I'm left with 1. Now I'm going to bring down that 5. 5 times what would give me 15? And I know it's 3, and I'm left with no remainder. So the answer is 13 hours. And don't forget to put the answer down here for C. So now I answered A, I answered B, I showed 2 different ways, I answered C. Now let's look at what they want you to do for D and E. How many minutes is that? Okay, so now they want us to change 13 hours into minutes. So if it's 13 hours equals X minutes, we don't know how many minutes. Well, I know that if 1 hour, I'll make a little T chart. If 1 hour equals 60 minutes, then 13 hours would have to be 13 times 60. So let's figure out what that is. 60 times 13. Now, this is double-digit multiplication. We did this in the middle of the year. So if you need a refresher, I would stop and I would go watch a video on Khan Academy to help you remember how to do it. So 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 6 is 18. Now, I'm going to the tens place, so I need to put a placeholder here, 0. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 6 is 6. And I don't have enough room to do my addition here, so I'm going to kind of bring it over here. Remember, you're adding. 180 plus 600 gives me 780. So there's 780 minutes in 13 hours. Now they're asking you for how many seconds. So you're going to do the same thing. I know there is 60 seconds in 1 minute. So I have to do 780 times 60. And actually, I'm going to do it over here because I'm going to need a lot more room. You're going to be doing this the same exact way. 0 times 0 is 0. 0 times 8 is 0. 0 times 7 is 0. Now moving over to the tens place, so I need to use my placeholder. 6 times 0 is 0. 6 times 8 is 48. I'm going to carry that 4. 6 times 7 is 42. Plus 4 is 46. Now you just add. And you get 46,800. So there are 46,800 seconds in 13 hours. Okay, number 2. They're asking you to do this multiplication fact. You can solve multiplication problem. You can solve any way you want. Me, I think breaking apart the fraction is the easiest and quickest, so that's the one I'm going to show you. But again, this is your choice. So I'm changing 3 and 2/10 to 3 plus 2/10. And then I would do 3 times 3 plus 3 times 2/10. And I'm actually going to put the 3 over 1. So 3 times 3 is 9 plus 3 times 2, which is 6, over 1 times 10, which is 10. And your answer is 9 6/10. Okay, let's do number 3. We're going to do it the exact same way. So 2 times 7 plus 7/10. So then I would do 2 times 7 plus 2, which is the same thing as writing 2 over 1, times 7/10. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 2 times 7, which is 14, 1 times 10, which is 10. So 14/10, I definitely can take out a whole, right? Because I could take 10 out of 14, and I'm left with 4/10. So my answer is 15 4/10. Okay, I believe the next journal page is the same thing. So let's look. Yep, they give you a word problem. They're asking you then to convert it into minutes and seconds, and then they're giving you two multiplication problems. So let's look what they're asking. The trumpet section of the band has 3 more members than the flute section. Each trumpet player practiced for 1 and 9 hours last week. How many hours did the trumpet players practice in all? Well, first we need to go back and make sure we remember how many people there were in the flute section. So there was 5. So I had 5 people in the flute section. Now they have 3 more members in the trumpet section. So 5 plus 3. And then I would multiply 1 and 9/10 equals H. Okay, so now we have to solve using two different ways. So I'm going to write this multiplication fact already doing that addition. I mean that multiplication, no addition, sorry, 5 times 3. 5 plus 3. So that's 8 times 1 and 9 tenths. So I'm going to rewrite that as 8 times 1 plus 9 tenths. And I'm going to do 8 times 1 plus 8 times 9 tenths. And I'm going to put my 8 over 1. Actually, that's a little messy. I don't know if that's hard for you guys to see over there. They really don't give you enough room. It makes Miss Mold nuts. I'm going to write big, and then I'm going to just erase it when I do the next problem. So it would be 8 times 1 plus 8 over 1, same way as writing 8, plus 9 tenths. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 8 times 9, which would give you 72. And then 1 times 10, which would give you 10. Now, I want to change 72. So what is a multiple of 10 that gets me close to 72? Well, I know 70 is close to 72. So I could take out 7 wholes, and I'm left with 2 tenths. And if I do 8 plus 7, I get 15 and 2 tenths. Okay, so I'm going to actually put that as my answer. 15 and 2 tenths hours. Okay, so since I took up so much space, I'm actually going to erase so I could show you guys another way to solve. And I'm going to change my color so we don't get confused. Okay, same thing. 8 times 1 and 9 tenths. I'm going to change 1 and 9 tenths to an improper fraction. So I'm going to bring over the 8 times 1 times 10 is 10 plus 9 is 19 tenths. Now remember, 8 I could also write as 8 over 1. So then you just multiply across. 19 times 8, I could do that over here. Well, I know that 9 times 8 is 72. 8 times 1 is 8 plus 7 is 15. So the answer is 152 tenths. And now I know that 15 times 10 would give me 150, which is close to 152. And if I do that, I'm left with 2 tenths. Okay, how many minutes is that? Now, this is different than the other problem because the other problem was a whole number. This is a mixed number. So now we have 15 and 2 tenths. So I'm going to do my work over here because now we have to do 60 times 15 and 2 tenths when I'm going to change it to 15 plus 2 tenths. So that would change to 60 times 15 plus 60 times 2 tenths. And I can actually write that 60 over 1. So if I were to do that out, 60 times 15, I'm actually going to make my color a little darker because for me it's hard to see on this screen. 60 times 15, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 6 is 30. I'm moving to the tens place, so I need my placeholder. 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 6 is 6. And I get 900 plus 60 times 2 is 120 over 10. Now I know that 120 is a multiple of 10, so I'm actually just going to write this as 12. and I get 912. So there is 912 minutes in 15 2/10 hours. So I just converted hours to minutes. Now I have to convert minutes to seconds, which is going to be a little easier because it's just multiplying. There's no fractions. So if I do 912 times 60, 0 times 2 is 0, 0 times 1 is 0, 0 times 9 is 0. Since I'm moving to the next place value, I'm doing a placeholder as 0. 6 times 2 is 12, so bring the 1 up. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 1 is 7, and then 6 times 9 is 54. And if I added this, my answer is 54,720 seconds. Okay. Final two problems. 6 times 5 3/12. So if I do 6 times 5 plus 3/12, I would get 6 times 5 plus 6 times 3/12, which I could put the 6 over 1. 6 times 5 is 30, plus 6 times 3, which is 18. 1 times 12 is 12. So now I need to change 18/12 into an improper, so from an improper fraction into a mixed number. And I know that I can take out one whole. And if I did 12 minus 18, I would be left with 1 6/12. So I'd get 31 6/12. Here's my answer. If you also wrote it as 31 1/2, that would be right too. Okay, let's do number 6. 5 times 2 3/4. So I would do 5 times 2 plus 3/4. So 5 times 2 plus 5 times 3/4. 5 times 2 is 10. If I put 5 over 1, I could just multiply across. 5 times 3 is 15. And then 1 times 4 is 4. Now, what is a multiple of 4 that's close to 15? I could rewrite this as 10 plus, well, I know 4 times 3 would give me 12. 15 minus 12 is 2/4. And I get 13 2/4. If you wrote that as 13 1/2, that's okay too. Okay, great job.